If you're claiming to worship Jesus, I need you guys to unite. Just because you're a feminist and you think that you should have the right to vote does not mean that you hate men. Do what you need to do, bitch. I could not be more opposite of that, obviously. Anyone who's ever followed me, if you don't have to look very far to see that that has not been my life path. There is no denying that there is an attack on women's rights right now. Men are inherently better and deserve more than women. Do I want to be a wife? I don't aspire to be a wife, but I would be a wife. Hey guys, it's Joy Taylor. Welcome to Too Personal. Thanks so much for joining us. We had a great week. Hope you had an amazing Easter weekend. We've got an exciting show coming up for you today. Later on in the week, we will talk to Les Alfred of the She's So Lucky podcast. I've been wanting to talk to Les forever, so I'm really excited to get to catch up with her. Of course, we'll get to a Never Too Personal this week, as we always do. If you want to be a part of the show, first, make sure you subscribe. But also follow us on social, and you can email us at twopersonalpodcast@gmail.com. Always want to know who you want us to have on the show and what you want to talk about. But of course, for Never Too Personal, we'll get to one of your questions, which is a very interesting one for this week. I wanted to get started today talking about something that, if you follow me on social, you know I talk a lot about these two particular topics. And we've touched on this actually in the past on the podcast, but it's just the overall attack on feminism, and to really hone in on a story this week that was in the New York Times. It's a conversation that some of the current politicians have sort of tossed some support out there for, but obviously not gone full steam ahead after, and that is women's voting. The SAVE Act is something that is a very controversial situation going on in politics right now, because a lot of married women would be directly affected by the SAVE Act and would essentially be ineligible to vote. And there's a story in the New York Times this week regarding trad wife influencers who are advocating for household voting or head of household suffrage. So the core argument is that a family should function as a single unit with one collective political voice, of course, typically exercised by the husband. It obviously has been gaining some traction over the past couple years. It's a small subsect of people, but as all these things do, they start small and grow into big movements. It's the biblical patriarchy arguments, based obviously on religion, interpretations of headship, a godly household. The husband is the spiritual and legal head. Therefore, the wife should defer the judgment in the voting booth to ensure that the family remains unified. Now, of course, the main critique of this is, well, what the fuck do women who aren't married do? And it is a criticism of feminism because it promotes the family unit over what is considered radical individualism. Now, listen, I know there are plenty of people, mostly the majority, who do not agree that the household should have one vote. But I am finding this constant drumbeat of trad wife propaganda and this output of topics surrounding women going back in the kitchen and women having too many rights and women having too much to say and women having independence has led to the deterioration of the family units and the birth rates dropping, which we talked about last week. And it's always about how women having more autonomy has deteriorated the family, and not any conversation about the responsibility that men have in this situation, with the birth rate dropping, with politics getting to the space that they are, with the family unit not being as important. It's all on women. And trad wives, to me, and the push of it and the movement of it has been a slow trickle of propaganda over the past couple years, which I have watched. We had a conversation about this on the podcast a while ago about the idea of being a traditional woman and that flying in the face of feminism and just the constant back and forth about what women's roles are. And I told this story, and I'll tell it again if you hadn't listened to it, but I have a deep admiration for women who have a specific goal in their life and they achieve it. For example, to me, one of the most successful people that I know personally is my older sister. She got married very young to the first man that she ever dated. She had her first kiss on the altar. They have been together for, I don't want to short them, but I'm going to say 36 years, I think, somewhere around there. Over 30 years. They have 5 children together, 2 grandchildren. All of their children have graduated college. They've done it. Like, she was a wife, a mother, and she raised her children and has had a wildly successful life based on the goals that she had for herself. And I deeply admire that. And it took great dedication and great sacrifice. And of course, a little luck along the way, health and other things. But they are an incredible example of family and an incredible success story. And I think the world of it. And I love that she was able to choose that life and able to execute it. Simultaneously, I could not be more opposite of that, obviously. Anyone who's ever followed me, if you don't have to look very far to see that that has not been my life path. But my sister is proud of me. She supports me. She is a good, actual good Christian woman, which we'll get to in a second. And she lives her life that way and views me as a success in that I did what I wanted to do. And the entire idea of feminism and the entire idea that the trad wife is the better option or the real option for women is incredibly frustrating to me. And the word feminism is constantly co-opted and morphed into this anti-men, men-hating movement. And it's like, just because you're a feminist and you think that you should have the right to vote does not mean that you hate men. The two are not simultaneous. You can exist as a person, as a woman, and live your life and want rights for yourself without hating men. It's not an attack on men. It's not an attack on the family. Everyone doesn't want the same thing. And when it comes to men, they're afforded that right. They're afforded that freedom. And it is not a default that they're somehow disregarding their life's purpose if they don't become a husband, if they don't become a father. Now, maybe their family or their mother might be disappointed because they don't have grandkids, but they are in no way viewed the same way. And they're certainly not held to a standard of deteriorating society for not wanting it. And so this trad wife thing is just exhausting, because every time you're critical of this type of extremism where you wouldn't have a right as a citizen to vote because you are a household vote, while I understand it's extremism, these are the seeds that build towards the bigger movements. There is no denying that there is an attack on women's rights right now. Everything that all of our leaders are talking about is about rolling back the progress that we've made. And when it comes to voting, which is a whole, larger conversation, I find it incredibly frustrating that women have only had the right to vote since 1965. Now, keep in mind, before you fact checkers start running off to Google, I'm aware that the 19th Amendment happened in 1920. That is women's right to vote. But I don't consider anything a right until everyone could vote, and Black women couldn't vote until 1965. So I'm unconcerned about that change. It happened in 1965. That was 61 years ago. Okay? That was not that long ago. And we are already having people who are putting together movements and are advocating for women not being able to vote. So when people accuse me of being radical, or people are exhausted about feminists talking about oppression and suffrage and rights and saying that women are not equal and that women haven't gained complete autonomy, it's because we're still having conversations about this, even though it is a constitutional right for women to vote. There are permeating ideas from the church, from certain political organizations, from aspiring politicians, from pundits, that women should not have a right that they've only had for 61 years. And it is so frustrating to me. And I know, like, people always joke about, oh, I should have been born in this era. Nope. I was born the exact year to date that I was supposed to be born in. If I was in any other time, they'd have been sending me back. Okay. I'd have been in a facility or burned at the stake. I was born at the exact time I was supposed to be born at, because I was born in the only time in history in this country where women have any level of autonomy over their body, over their ability to start a business, over their ability to leave unhealthy relationships, for their ability to speak on their own, to aspire to corporate positions or positions of power. All of those things have existed only in my lifetime. My mother wasn't afforded those things. My grandmother wasn't afforded those things. My great grandmother, my aunties. I am living not even the wildest dreams of women that came before me, because they couldn't even imagine that this was possible. And I'm only 39 years old and they're already tripping. And again, I don't want to make too big of a deal about some pilgrims in some bonnets talking about how they're okay with their husbands being the ones to vote for them. Do what you need to do, bitch. Okay. If you want your husband to run your vote up for you, you do that. By the way, that's voter fraud. So just don't vote and your husband's vote will count. But the idea that this is the traditional way of doing things, that this is how society functions, as if men aren't still in control and making the decisions that are deteriorating society, is crazy to me. I'm just tired of it. And again, there's no new feminism. There is no modern feminism where men are the enemy. If we're still having conversations about women having autonomy over their bodies, women having to get on Zoom calls while they're in labor about whether or not they have a right to a C-section or natural birth, when we have people advocating for household votes, I don't want to hear about how the feminist movement has changed. It's still just fighting for the core principal values of equality, of political, social, economic rights that are barely existing now, have barely existed at all, and they're already trying to roll back. So I don't care if you want to be a traditional woman. I encourage it. In fact, if that is the life that you want to live, you have the choice to live that. You're welcome on behalf of the giants whose shoulders we stand on, who fought for you to be able to do that. And if you want to leave that man after he has abused you, guess what you have a right to do because of those women? Leave and take your children and go to a safe space. You have every right to be a traditional woman and give up every part of your existence if that's what you want to do. And by the way, you don't have to do that. You can be a traditional woman and still have your autonomy. You can still be a wife and mother and still have your autonomy. And everyone else has the right to make their choices too. And voting is something that we will talk about a lot this year. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. Nothing will put me in a bad mood more than having a conversation with somebody who doesn't vote. And when it comes to women, these women suffered. They were abused. They were jailed. They were tortured here in this country, fighting for the right for women to be considered citizens in the United States of America. And it only happened in 1965. It is 2026. Get a fucking grip. When we talk about, your ancestors fought for this, dog, it was like your aunt, okay? It was not fucking 500 years ago that this happened. It wasn't that long ago. My mother was born before this happened. And she's kicking it, all right? We're going to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day and shit. Get a grip. They put tubes down women's throats in prison, force feeding when they were protesting, so that you could walk your ass into a voting booth and say what you want for your future and for your children's future and for your parents' lives, like all of the rights that you vote for the fucking infrastructure and whatever it is that's on the ballot. They did that for you. I don't want to hear no shit about a family vote. I'm really tired of it. I'm tired of women holding up the patriarchy with their bony backs. Let it go, sis. Mind your fucking business. If you want to do that, do that. There is no holiness. There is no glory in oppressing other people. People fought and died for these rights. They were abused and jailed and beaten and ridiculed and thrown out into the street and excommunicated by their families. Do what you want to do. But to sit there and talk about these type of movements as if they're anything other than a religious psychosis, which is the principle of what our country is built on, separation of church and state. It's not a moral thing you're fighting for. It's a religious idea that men are inherently better and deserve more than women. And I am exhausted with having to constantly talk about this because I do sound obnoxious, but I don't care. I do not care. We are the first generation of women who can exist without legally needing men to survive. It's been like 3 years and you bitches are already trying to run it back. And I speak to the women particularly because in order for oppression to exist, you have to have some cooperation from the oppressed. And these women position themselves as if they're doing some great sort of duty. And the reality is you're suffering as well. You're just not suffering as much as everyone else that you're forcing into your lifestyle. There is no scientific basis for this. There is no base of reality where women are less than men, incapable of making better decisions than men, more emotional than men. So let's just get a fucking grip. Can we have 5 more minutes with our rights before we start talking about family votes? Speaking of, let's get into the head of the regime, Donald Trump. So for those who practice, it was Easter this weekend. And he decided to drop just a colossal, well, it's not a tweet. What is that bullshit he runs? Truth Social? Truth Social. What a name. You want to know why nobody can figure shit out? Because a platform where Donald Trump tweets from his fucking golden toilet is called Truth Social. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Now, in any other timeline, the President of the United States tweeting praise be to Allah would set off a national emergency. But because we're so used to this person being completely unhinged at all times of the day, including Easter Sunday, this did nothing but make some rumbles on social media. Nobody's in the streets. Nobody's upset in a way that they're activating. Of course, there are people who are upset. I'm upset, but nobody's doing anything about it. And this has just been an interesting week for me personally, reflecting on one of the bigger conflicts that I have been experiencing over the past couple years. And, you know, the show's called Too Personal, so we like to get into it. And I am absolutely having I guess what some people would call a crisis of faith. I'm having more of an epiphany. I've talked about it many times publicly, but I was born and raised in a Baptist church. And I spent 16 years going to church anywhere from 3 to 7 days a week. I've read the Bible cover to cover many times. I've traveled and gone to churches. I've been a part of youth groups and youth camps and youth outreach and children's hospitals and old people's homes and ministering at juvenile detention centers and the whole gamut. Everything that has to do with church, vacation Bible school, all of the things. I've done it. I've lived it. I've done it. And I feel very strongly about church people. I feel very strongly about these institutions. And I feel very strongly about the brands of Christianity, particularly Protestant, because obviously they don't consider Catholics to be Christians anymore, which is crazy enough in itself. But I mentioned the Donald Trump tweet and his total just I don't even know what's the word I want to use for it. His entire brand, I guess, let's say. And the idea that Christians, all white Christians, black Christians, good Christians, bad Christians, I hate gay Christians, liberal Christians, the whole set and the entire brand is so utterly confusing to me. As somebody who understands it inside and out, has heard every single version of the Old Testament, of the New Testament, of this is wrong and that is wrong, and this is, you're going to hell for this and you're going to hell for that, or God loves everyone and, you know, do unto others. I've heard it all. I've heard it all. The overlying, over-encompassing principle and idea of Christianity, and the fact that our president and his ragtag crew are pushing this idea that they are Christians and that we are a Christian country, and that the principles in which they operate and the language in which they use and the laws in which they're passing and the activities in which they're participating in are that of somebody who is Christian. If I was representing that set, would be maddened. And in the same way that I feel like men are not mad enough about the violence against women, about the attitudes towards women, about the push for women to have less, I feel like Christians aren't mad enough that this is the kind of representation that you guys are getting. And I don't separate white Christians from black Christians, from Asian Christians, from the pilgrim people that I was just talking about with the household vote. All of it, if you're claiming to worship Jesus, I need you guys to unite. I don't know, have a forum and figure out why this is the permeating situation. Love, peace, kindness, generosity, forgiveness, all of those things that Jesus was supposed to be about, that's what the book says Jesus was about, that's not being represented. And I am not saying that anything is everything or all. I know incredible Christian people who represent those qualities to the highest level. They're not judgmental. They would give everything they have to help another person. But I know so few of those people and so many more of what I'm talking about that I'm just genuinely confused as to what is the brand. Because right now, it looks like there is no message whatsoever. Like, I can't have a conversation with someone who is going to sit there and tell me that Donald Trump represents Christianity. Why would I want to be a part of that? Like, what is the pitch here? The whole thing is forceful. And I had a conversation about Jaden Ivey early in the week, who is clearly having a mental breakdown and suffering from religious psychosis. And everyone's mad at me because I'm saying, this is y'all king. Like, you want to attach to someone who is not even saying rational things because he said one hateful thing that you agree with. And again, why is the hateful thing the thing that you're attaching to? I know that I'm saying a lot and it's probably a bit all over the place because I'm just very passionate about it, but we just have Christian nationalism sprinkled over these little streams of things that pour down into these other spaces. I'm sure there's going to be people who say, well, I don't agree with Christian nationalism. Maybe not. But you do think that gay people are going to hell. So you're okay with that part of it, right? You do think that abortion is murder. So you do agree with that part of it. You do think that a woman's place is in the home. So you do agree with that part of it. You do agree with purity culture, right? That like being a virgin is something to aspire to. So you do agree with that part of it. So what are the parts that separate you as a Christian? I really am really struggling with it. We've got guys like Doug Wilson in the White House giving prayers, somebody who has talked about slavery, someone who's talked about women's suffrage and ending the 19th Amendment. advocates for Christian reconstructionism so that like biblical law is a part of our governments. You're willing to sacrifice separation of church and state because the Department of War posted a "He is risen" meme. I guess what I'm trying to say is, how far are you guys willing to go and how much are you willing to sacrifice because you feel a part of something? How many rights are we willing to give up? And not we, obviously, because I'm not participating in this. How many rights are you willing to give up? How many people are you willing to watch be oppressed? How many times are you willing to see people othered or thrown in concentration camps or put in conversion therapy or lose their right to vote or lose their ability to have a partner that they choose and get medical benefits or have a right to marriage? How many women have to die in parking lots of hospitals before we have a conversation about abortion actually being healthcare and not murder? Christianity is very confusing for me right now. And it's a little bit painful because I really want to believe that the whole of these institutions, and listen, that the whole of these institutions are good. Let me finish my thought. That the whole of these institutions are good. And no, I don't pick on Islam because I was not raised in Islam. I don't pick on Judaism because I was not raised Jewish. Now, do I think that all of those other massive institutions fall under the same category of criticism that Christianity does? Absolutely. They are used to justify violence. They are used to justify genocide. They are used to justify slavery. They are used to justify abuse of children. They are used to justify the abuse and the oppression of women. They're used to justify war and all kinds of atrocities. They are used to uphold the royals, like take over entire countries, colonize whole continents. So yes, at the top, there are some issues, but at the core of it all, is it really about connecting with God and having a relationship with God? Or is it about being a part of an institution that allows you the ability to judge and condemn other people? What is your goal? Is your goal to feel like you're a part of something, or is your goal to live a life that is for others? To live a life that is Christ-like, to love your neighbor, to do unto others, to do unto the least of them. I don't really hear a lot of Christians quoting those these days. I do hear them quoting, the verses that they use to justify, sending women to prison for having miscarriages, or the verses about throwing your child out into the street because they've come out to you as gay, or women, not having a right to start a business because men are the head of the house. I hear a lot of those. I don't hear a lot of the ones about loving everybody and giving people their free will to choose to come to God. I don't hear any of that. So I'm just a little confused. Maybe after you have the Come Together convention, you can explain it to me, because I am really struggling with it. And this week, in that tweet amongst, or not, what is it? What do we even call it? A truthy? What is it? What is the thing on there? It's a post. Just a post. Whatever the fuck is on that Truth Social app, the truthy, whatever that truthy is that Trump dropped. And the Jaden Ivy thing, and the Easter, and the Department of Defense posting a "He is risen." What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't know. I'm fired up this week. Anyway, that's my rants for today. Let me know what you think. And now it's time to get to Never Too Personal. All right, now it's time for Never Too Personal. If you want to be a part of the show, email us at twopersonalpodcasts@gmail.com, or we post a prompt every Sunday on Too Personal Show on IG, where you should follow us anyway. This question is a very personal question. Do you want to be a wife? Well, I was a wife, and I was also a fiance. And obviously I've been a girlfriend. So I've touched all those bases, and I've also been single as well, obviously. I Do I want to be a wife? I don't aspire to be a wife, but I would be a wife. I think being a wife, or being married, I should say, is an incredibly massive commitment. It is also a massive sacrifice. And a lot of times when entering into these situations, we only talk about parts of what it means. Obviously, it's a commitment. You're choosing a person to be with for the rest of your life. You're choosing to partner with them. You're choosing to share your space with them, to share your body with them, to share your finances with them, your family with them, sometimes a child with them. But you are also sacrificing things. And the sacrifice is a part of it that has to happen if it's going to work. When you're a single person, you can make choices that directly affect you, and you don't necessarily have to consult anyone about them. When you're married, all of your choices affect another person because you have a partner. So you have to sacrifice a lot of autonomy. You have to sacrifice your ability to just move around. You have to sacrifice things physically sometimes, and a list of other things. It's a lot of compromise. It's almost a daily compromise. And the people change. People are one person when you marry them, and they can be a different person in 2 years, 5 years, and certainly over the course of a lifetime, people change in a lot of ways. So it's not something that is a goal of mine to be a wife. It is something I would do. I would get married. But if I got married, it's something that I would be 1000% sure that, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I would never get divorced. Obviously, atrocities outstanding. This is the person that I'm choosing forever. And I know that sounds very silly because, like, I've already been married. But as we know, sometimes you don't think all of these things through. And it really is the biggest decision and the most important decision that you will ever make. You're picking a partner, and it is the most outrageous contract that you will ever sign in your life. And you are signing a contract. You are agreeing to be a partner with another person. So, yes, I would be a wife. Do I want to be a wife? Only to the person that I would agree to be a wife to, if that makes sense. I'm not going to be a wife for the sake of being a wife. It's a lot of nuanced conversation that I don't think people have. I think a lot of people want the wedding. They don't necessarily want the marriage. And the wedding is one day. The marriage is a lifetime. So it is just the most serious thing that you could ever do. And I honestly think if people who were married for a long time had more real conversations about it, if people who had failed marriages had more real conversations about it, and if we supported each other in our marriages more fully and honestly, I think there would be more success in marriages. So, great question. Hope that answered it. And if you want to be a part of the show, again, email us, DM us, make sure that you subscribe and follow. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And we'll catch you next time on Too Personal.